Hey everyone, welcome to the Breakpoint again. So, for those of you that don't know, we previously had two events running in parallel. We had CSS Breakpoint and we had JavaScript Breakpoint, and yeah, we kind of took a bit of a pause on them for a while just because of you know life and whatever. And so what we've decided is to restart it again, collapsing both of them under a single thing just called the Breakpoint, in which Justin and I, and if we are able to bully, coerce, or convince any other guests to join us, then they are welcome to, where we just chat a bit about kind of what happened the last 2 weeks in design, UX, UI, front end, so CSS, HTML,
Yeah.
and so forth. Yeah, so
And
it's
assorted
meant,
and assorted
yes,
drama.
yes, and humans, which tend to come along with HTML and design and CSS and
Yeah.
JavaScript, unfortunately. Um, and yeah, so I think we try and keep it pretty informal.
Yeah.
So I think both of us kind of just made some quick notes about things that are worth talking about. I think let me just open up some type of screen here for me to just take notes. Let me just share my screen. And I think then we can dive into it. And it might be worthwhile, given that I'm right now in FigJam, for us to maybe start chatting about the grid functionality in CSS.
Mm.
In the CSS grid functionality in Figma. I did see that, but I haven't actually played around with it much. Justin, I don't know if you've kind of had a chance to play around with it a bit.
Yes, I did an internal session at NML on
Oh, nice.
on
Okay.
on grid. Um,
Yes.
so it's very intuitive to use, and it's very much is based on the concepts that underpin CSS grid. Uh,
Mm.
so
Mm.
those a lot of those principles apply to how you use it. It's really easy to set it up. You just select a grid from the auto layout tools, and then you can add as many columns or rows as you want.
Mm.
And it actually has, like in uh,
Oops.
in CSS, you have auto rows, auto columns. It very
Mm.
much works in the same way. You can just
Okay.
add an additional bit of content, and it'll automatically create a new row or a new column for you. You can also
Mm.
span over grids as well. I
Mm.
think this is layout grids, Scott, not the same.
Yeah, it's a layout grid.
No, no,
Oh, is
no.
this something
It's
different? Oh, this.
Yeah.
How? Where do I find any
I'm going to send you the link.
resources on it? I
I'm
searched
going
for
to
Figma. Yeah.
Yeah, grid. I'll send you the
Oh,
link in
here it
our
is.
chat here. That's the one. Yeah, that's the
I,
one.
I apparently I can't Google to save my life. Okay. Okay. Cool. I see. So previously, obviously, auto layout was based on Flexbox.
That's right. It
Um.
was either horizontal or vertical. Yeah, not
Mm,
uh,
mm,
not not multi axes. Um, and you can see. I mean, that video is a nice little illustration of it.
mm,
Yeah. You can
mm,
also set min and max heights and widths and all those types of things
mm,
on both your columns and rows and your cells,
mm,
um, which is pretty neat. Um, and you can convert existing layouts into a grid as well, just by changing the auto layout properties.
oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
So those are all built into it as well. And then you can also, position items. So you know how we have, align, center, uh, or spacing that we have in CSS.
Mm,
Those all work the same. I
mm,
would actually recommend, if you're going to play around with this in Figma as a designer, it's really worthwhile familiarizing yourself with CSS Grid,
yeah.
because the the principles are very, very much the same. Yeah.
Yes,
Um,
I've found the same to actually be the case with auto layout.
yeah.
Is I think it seems very daunting to designers to
Mm,
kind of just get a handle on Flexbox, but I think it's actually easier learning Flexbox first and then understanding how Figma represents Flexbox, as opposed to learning what Figma is doing just as an abstraction. Because I think if you just take it for at face value, a lot of the things aren't going to make sense, and it's not going to be. You're not going to understand like why can't you set this thing or why can you set this thing or I actually
exactly. Yeah.
find that it's easier just like actually learning the underlying technology first.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Okay. And the thing is as well, what I've also found is if you learn Flexbox, then you don't necessarily think about the layout as just a visual exercise. Then you kind of understand the implications if you were to resize the screen and so forth.
That's
Otherwise,
right.
like,
Yeah.
yes, if you just take it for what it is and treat it as, oh, this is an easy way to get things laid out, then like I think you're losing a lot of the value of actually having it be a one-to-one representation of Flexbox.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite right.
Okay.
Completely agree. Yeah.
Mm.
I've just popped a link in the private chat there, Scott. There's a
Mm.
Figma community file that illustrates all of these grid properties.
Mm.
Um, in our
No.
private chat, did I send the wrong one?
Oh,
Yes.
the YouTube.
Sorry.
The YouTube. Sorry, it's like
No, no,
it's
no,
interest.
no.
Oh no, you didn't send
Sorry,
it
my
yet.
bad. I'm sending you the wrong thing.
So,
This
but
one.
okay, I will put all these in the URL in the description of the video as well. So, oh, nice. Okay. So I think my biggest question is how how much of grid does it actually expose? Because there's probably some stuff that's kind of hard to express purely through a UI. Um, or is it
Yeah.
effectively is it whatever you can do with grid you can do here? Is it
So
like a
you can't do things like named template
yes,
areas. I mean,
exactly.
that's not going to be something you can emulate in a visual UI tool.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
Oh, that's really
alignment,
nice.
positioning, spanning, um,
Mm.
duplication of cells, auto rows, auto columns,
Mm.
um, min and max widths,
Mm.
kind of emulate a little bit intrinsic sizing.
Mm.
If you drop an image, for example, onto a cell, it fills the cell, yeah, and
Yes.
you can then go and say whether you want it to fill the cell or not. So
Yeah.
it does have that built in as well, and you can see there in that grid mode, there where you are, there. Just
Which
you
one?
see that's yeah exactly where you are. Just go to the right a
Yeah.
little bit, grid and dev mode, and
Oh,
just
dev
zoom in
mode.
on the dev mode there. You'll see it's giving you
Yes.
um, the CSS is pretty well structured. Yeah,
Mm. Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
um,
This is cool. Like, and it's interesting because, like if you were to go on, like sites like this one or, like, so you have all these kind of like, what would be the word, like almost like Bauhaus type like layouts and stuff. And it always
mm,
used to be like a cool thing because it was so hard to pull it off in CSS.
yes,
Like this type of stuff.
yeah,
Where it's like
exactly. Yeah,
very like yeah, like this and this is a perfect one, you
yeah,
always used to
there we go.
see these type of things in these type of showcase websites because
Yeah,
it's really hard to pull something like this off in CSS. But now it's so trivial that I almost wonder whether this type of design is just going to become, like not really that impressive
yes, uh,
anymore.
I really think that is the case. Yeah,
Yeah, because even just looking at this, if I were to do this for Flexbox alone, this would be quite a lot of CSS. I'd really have to sit down and think how I would lay this out and how I would structure this. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd probably be looking at grid there, and then grid placing items specifically on rows and columns with numbering or named
Yes.
areas and things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
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 And then you just have like your empty cells and so
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
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 This
But
is
yeah, I mean, having to do that prior, sure. I
yeah.
mean,
Even
yeah.
pre-Flexbox, this was
No,
I'd
yeah,
probably just
almost
position
impossible.
absolute it.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Speaking of,
Yeah.
speaking of, you can actually also combine grid and position absolute in Figma.
Hmm.
So if you want to have something in your grid that's not going to be affected by the grid changing size,
Oh, you want to kind of
um,
overlay it
you
almost.
can fix it with position absolute. You could do that with auto layout for a long time, but
Hmm.
it's included in grid as well.
Yeah, this is a really great resource. I will put this in the text description.
Yeah.
Um, okay, cool. Anything else worth mentioning about this, or
Well,
should we move
there
on?
is there's one other thing worth mentioning about Figma,
Hmm.
um, and that's the Figma
Oh,
is now a
IPO,
publicly traded
yes.
company. Um,
Yes.
their stocks have already crashed, of course. Um,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, so we'll see what this heralds. Yeah, um,
It's strange that it kind of feels like it flew a bit under the radar.
yeah,
Or maybe I'm just not consuming the right sources of news, but
yeah. We're
it,
probably not reading all the VC stuff, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
so
I'm also
Figma
wondering
now
whether.
publicly traded. Does
Hmm,
this lead to, shareholder value, or does it lead to user value? Well, I think we all know where these kinds of things go, but let's
yes.
see what happens.
Yeah, and I think there's also, like, yeah, this is also now tricky because now I definitely see something like config almost becoming like almost like the Apple events that they have every year,
Yeah.
where
Yes.
like it's definitely going to lean more into the spectacle side of things.
Hmm.
Um, in
Yeah.
order, like it's going to be more to appease shareholders. It's almost like a annual like report
Yeah.
instead of actually just like check-in terms of where they are and so forth. But
Mm.
although it has kind of become like kind of a
A little bit.
spectacle thing already, I think like
Yeah.
definitely a lot of the stuff at the previous one clearly was very rushed. Especially like a lot of the AI stuff was clear that it was pushed out, like it was rushed to be pushed out before config, and also a lot of it is like I don't really think it's like at some point there's only so much stuff you can like add to a design tool. So
Yes.
eventually you're going to start exploring like these really obscure and esoteric things just to have new features that you can
Hmm.
promote. Yeah, I don't know where this is going to go. Like, I mean, like, is Figma just going to keep on adding more and more and more stuff? I think they've
Mm.
already like exceeded like what you would expect from a design tool. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the Figma Make is now out of beta this week, actually.
Hmm.
So that's
Hmm.
their whole like vibe coding, for want of a terrible phrase.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, but I don't see that going anywhere, to be honest.
Yeah. Same
Why
here.
would you use that when there are far superior tools out there if that's the kind of thing you want to do?
Yeah, why? No, I 100% get you. Like it almost feels like even with vibe coding, and I think this, this maybe takes us to
T
the
app,
next thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, so we can probably not chat about this, but like I think like if you were to do vibe coding, um, is this about the where is the I think this is yes. Um, if you were to do like, it almost feels like a visual interface is the worst way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like it almost feels like is this up here? Okay, anyway, well, some general. I assume he's not speaking about the T app. Um,
It's not a
so
news site these days if there isn't a random
if there
auto
isn't like
playing
50
video.
random unrelated things, um, like to me, like it almost feels like just a prompting, like doing vibe coding by means of prompts is makes more sense than visual, like describing functionality by means of language. I think is much more of a natural fit than describing functionality visually.
Mm.
um I don't know. It kind of, yeah, like we'll see. It just feels like,
What? Yeah.
yeah, I
What?
don't see the user need there. It feels like a step backwards from just using something like Bolt
Yeah,
or, yeah,
or
so
lovable or cursor or
exactly,
whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
completely agree. Yesterday I was updating some colors in a library because some
Mm,
branding changes, and as soon
mm.
as I published my updates to the library, I got a big pop-up that said, uh, "Send your design system to Figma Make for quick prototyping." Like I don't want. Don't tell me to do that. This whole thing exists in a code base. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need to now go and vibe code my variable change in Figma itself. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
just to check, like Make, does that just do the UI or does it actually do the code as well?
It does the code as well,
Okay.
but it's it only works with Tailwind and Shatsian, nothing else. Yeah.
So basically any other any other like
Well,
design tool. Yeah.
it's kind of like I guess V0 in Figma kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
But it's interesting. I think I listened to a Syntax FM um, episode the other day where I think Wes mentioned he has like whenever he's using any type of like these tools, he has like this massive like preamble he has to put in front of every single prompt, and it's like, do not use shad cn, do not like, because like it's just like it's just like it's interesting. I did a LinkedIn post about this the other day. um I don't know like how much JavaScript you write anymore.
Quite
um
a bit.
but like I don't know why, but AI loves the map data type. I don't know if you've seen
Always.
this. Like
Yes, yes.
I've literally, like, I think every single junior that I've worked with has given me code with a map in it. And I asked them like, why did you use a map? And they can't tell me, or they like just upfront are like, okay, no, it's AI generated. Like
Yeah.
almost always just plain object literal would be way better, especially when it comes to serializing and deserializing things. I have no idea why AI loves the map data type so much.
Mm.
My working hypothesis is that I think because it's trained on a lot of like different coding languages, and JavaScript, the way JavaScript does like object literals and stuff is kind of strange and somewhat unique. Like in
Mm.
languages, like most other languages have this concept of a record. Um, and JavaScript doesn't. Like you can put anything in a, you can mix and match your keys. Like you don't need any consistency in terms of the stuff you keep in an object literal. So my assumption is just like, because it's trained on so many other languages where most of them kind of where this map like functionality is a big part of the language, like it just
Mm-hmm.
tries to do the same thing in JavaScript. But because of the way JavaScript works and how it was designed and so forth, you actually don't really use map that much unless you're doing like really low level code.
Yeah, yeah,
And it needs to
exactly.
be really
Yeah.
performant and whatever. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird. But I'm curious, like it's like where these preferences come from, and the same with
Mm.
ShadCN. I just curious where those preferences come from. Why I love Shad CN so much. But anyway, cool. Yeah. So let's just So obviously, there's two. There's this. I don't know if you know about this app, but like as far as I understand, it was kind of like the vibe coding darling app, because
Hmm.
the guy that built it, I think, did a 6 week, I stand corrected, a 6 week boot camp or something, and then he just vibe coded this app, and it became massive. Um, but yeah, this long story short, then like the entire database got hacked and all the user info got leaked,
Everyone was
and
doxed, yeah.
yes. And so, like now this is an interesting question is, like obviously you can, like, if like who is responsible here, So if you're using a platform to vibe code an app without actually knowing anything about code, does, let's say you're using Bolt or V0 or whatever, is it the tool's job to inform you? Because obviously this guy didn't know anything about, like, um, SQL injection or
Yeah,
like
securing anything
cross-site
properly.
scripting or anything. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like, um, so is it reasonable to expect him to know that he doesn't know those things, or is it the platform's job to make sure he doesn't do stupid stuff?
Mm.
I don't know. And I think it's also in relation to this. I don't know if you saw the new ChatGPT agent stuff, the agentic stuff. The actual
Hmm.
announcement is like 3 paragraphs, and the remainder is just disclaimers.
Yes, I know.
Which is just like, don't effectively, like, yeah, be careful, don't do stupid shit with this.
Uh, did you see? Did you see the benchmark graphs they had in the announcement?
No, no.
So
Let me actually
they
find it.
generate ChatGPT 5, and
Yes. So it's basically just this announcement, and with a basic overview of what it is, and then it's literally just disclaimers.
yeah,
What is it? Yeah.
yeah.
This is like all the disclaimers. Like,
I
okay,
know.
like keep all of this in mind. Don't be stupid. Yeah. I don't know. Have you tried it?
No, I haven't tried it yet, but I actually opened up Cursor
Mm,
yesterday, and the
okay.
first thing Cursor told me was ChatGPT 5 now available. But
Okay.
yeah,
Interesting.
so
Okay.
when someone else told me it's already in Copilot,
Yes.
um, yeah,
Okay. But yeah, I mean, like, this is like a 3 hour conversation if you really want to dig into this. But I mean, like, keeping on the topic of security, I also just want to chat about. So there was also a thing with the ESLint prettier config
uh,
getting
Scott.
hacked.
Before we go on that, just on this T app, there
Yes.
was a there was a T app for men, a T for him or something,
Oh
and it
no.
also got hacked, and
Oh
exactly the
no.
same thing happened. Yeah.
Yes.
T
Yeah.
on her, T on her. That's what it's called.
Yes.
T on her also got hacked. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is interesting. Someone actually looked at the source code. Ha. But yeah, no, it's wild. I mean, yeah, I don't know. We're probably gonna see a lot of the same stuff happening in the UI world as well, where
Yeah.
you're gonna have some type of user flow or something. So regardless of security, um, someone's gonna use AI to design a user flow or whatever, and it's gonna look really nice and be super polished, but there's gonna be something ridiculous like you can't create a new account or whatever. So you can
Yeah.
sign in
Yes.
and whatever, and they're going to publish this, and or there's no way to check out, you know. And I think this is the problem with a lot of these tools is, superficially they have all the connotations and all the signals that you would get from something that is well designed and polished. Um, without actually being well designed and polished.
Mm.
And I'm
Yeah.
curious whether we are going to smarten up to that, because I think obviously we at the moment we take a nice looking UI as kind of proxy for how good this thing is. Because it
Yes,
takes a lot of effort to build a nice looking UI. So to us,
it
that's a
does.
proxy for how much effort has gone into this thing. But I'm
Mm.
curious whether we're just mentally going to stop doing that.
Mm.
And like nice looking UIs are just going to become not really of value, or in
Quite
terms of
possibly, yeah.
convincing or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which also Jacob Nielsen also once again predicted the end of web design. And I made a snarky comment on his LinkedIn about, didn't you do this in the year 2000 about RSS? He did, though. He said in the year 2000 web design is dead because everyone's going to use
Because of
RSS.
RSS.
Yeah.
But he is just gung
Drinking
ho
the
about
AI
it.
Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
I stopped following him. Like, I don't know. It feels like he went a bit off the rails, but
Mm.
yeah. Cool.
Right.
But anyway, yeah. So effectively, long story short, with this, basically what happened is the ES config prettier, the actual guy who has like who publishes it to npm, his personal details got hacked, and like someone was able to publish new versions of this with a virus in, and luckily they were able to pick up on it pretty soonish. And thanks to like the world of open source, because someone actually logged an issue that was like I don't know, would they have it here? Yeah, someone's like, wait, like this doesn't, and this is one of those things, like about many eyes make all bugs shallow,
Yeah.
but also many eyes kind of like also make security incidents also very easy to pick up. So
Yeah.
this guy just was like this seems weird. Like, why is there no changes in the newly?
Mm.
There was 4 new versions released, like major bumps, and like there's
In
very
an
little
hour. Yeah.
changes. Yeah. um and then like this poor guy, and then where's his response? um but check this, huh? Like,
Yeah.
credit where credit is due. This is pretty ingenious. They registered a domain npnjs.com.
Oof.
Check this out. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is like, like obviously criminals gonna be criminals, but man, like I have to give some credit here. This is pretty ingenious. It is so hard to spot that. Like it's like, yeah, this
Yeah.
looks legit. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's kind of like that's how they got his credentials. They kind of sent him like a link to their own domain where he had to quote unquote log in. Yeah.
With a straight token there to directly grab everything you
Yeah.
need. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, amazing. Okay. What else was there? So I had a couple of things and can't now think about. Let me just think. Oh,
Um,
okay. Open.
I've got our
So the
chat here.
HTML. Yeah. So the state of HTML is open.
Mm.
State of CSS kind of just recently closed as well.
There's
But
a
I think
new
that might be worth digging into next time because I think that's
next
like an
time. Yeah.
entire session. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
There's the. I don't know if this is relevant to
Yes.
everyone, but there's the Postman have released a state of
API one.
API one.
So state. Yeah. There's a lot of these nowadays, but I really appreciate it. I'm not gonna lie. I
Second one.
wish I. Oh, is it? Oh, the second one. Oh, that's last year. Um, I really wish there were more design ones. There used to
Yeah,
be a
me
lot
too.
of design ones, and
Yeah,
they kind of
that
died
kind of
out.
disappeared. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There used to be the design tools one. There were
It was the
quite a
design
few.
systems one by
Yeah, mm,
Sparkbox.
yeah.
Yeah. But there's a lot of dev ones now at the moment. There's like a state of AI, state of HTML, state of
Native
CSS.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the CSS one is by Leah Verow, right? now that she
Yes,
works
she's
in.
taken that over. Yeah.
That's how you pronounce her name, correct?
I'm not sure.
Veru.
Vero, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. I'm Skulk Venter, so I get to mispronounce people's names. Yeah, I've gotten some wild ones. Okay, let me actually just bring up that list.
Yeah, I've got it here. MDN turning 20.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Let me just also paste the link there. Did you check the MDN? Did you check
Yeah.
the actual article, like where they have when they actually shipped, and they got like cakes from the Internet Explorer team?
Yeah.
Yeah, when they launched MDN, how cool is this?
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah, and then this is what they got now for their 20th birthday.
Very
Um,
cool.
yeah, this is I'm yeah, like I'm glad MDN is still going strong. I know it was a bit touch and go at some point where
Mm.
Mozilla said they aren't really going to push any more resources into it, but it's going pretty solid. So I don't know if that's purely just because volunteers or what, but yeah,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, it's great. It's still the best resource out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. Like
Hands
where, like
hands
even
down.
I was actually reading the Nuxt JS documentation last night. I think it was Nuxt or it was Vue documentation or something, and they actually say, like, oh, before installing or getting started, like, please like get to grips with JavaScript and CSS first, and they just like how link the MDN tutorials. And I'm like, yes, man, like how crazy is that?
Yeah,
Um,
that's very cool.
yeah. Okay, what else is there? There is. Oh, yes. Veet actually passed
Yeah,
NPM
this is interesting.
for the
Yeah.
very first time. NPM passed Webpack for the
Yeah.
very first time a couple of days ago. Like, it's not even cached by. Uh, it's not even cached by. Yeah, Google doesn't even pick it up yet. It's so fresh.
Hmm.
Oh, here it is.
I
Yeah.
I saw it in bytes, so there must be a link. Yeah.
Yeah, here it is. Um, yeah, so this is interesting, but I guess this is just all just legacy code.
Yep.
Yeah, um, which I think is also a nice segue into the other piece of news, um, which is them getting acquired by Vercel.
Next.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it's also Nitro, is it not? Didn't
You see,
Nitro also?
uh,
No, is it not? Is it? Acquire Nux Labs. Yes,
creators and
yes,
stewards of Nitro, and
yes.
yeah, yeah.
This is
This
so
is
strange
yeah,
to me because
yeah.
Nitro to me feels like a direct competitor to
Turbo
um,
Pack.
TurboPack. Yes, exactly. Um, so it's kind of like the antithesis to TurboPack because TurboPack is very specific
For
for
next.
Next.js.
Yeah.
Whereas the whole point about Nitro is that the goal of Nitro is effectively to be the Vite of server infrastructure.
Yes.
So that I think Solid Start uses Nitro, TanStack Start uses Nitro. A lot of these tools use Nitro, which is I think it's also a bit concerning that Vercel basically now owns the server infrastructure of like I mean like they have Next now under them, they have Nuxt, they have like by definition of Nitro secondhand, they have Solid Start, TanStack
Yeah.
Start. Yeah.
Yes. That's
Um,
yeah. It's
and I
yeah.
think what is maybe a bit concerning here is that like the way they've been what they've been doing with Next is they've very much been coupling Next very tightly with Vercel. Whereas, like you even have stuff like Open Next, which is kind of an attempt to actually make like Next more portable and run it on other platforms that aren't Vercel. So I think that's a bit concerning, just.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
I
because
don't know.
OpenNext is being used by Netlify,
Yes.
Cloudflare,
Yes.
AWS, Azure starting to look into it.
Yes. But the point
Um,
being that you can't just run Next as is on these platforms. Next is
no.
specifically built for Vercel.
Well,
So I
you
think
can, but you're losing out on a lot
on a
of
lot of stuff, yeah.
specifically Vercel based
Mm.
infrastructure around runtimes and functions and all
Yes.
those kinds of things. Yeah.
Yes. And the
Yeah.
thing is, like, it's not like this is a community project as well. Like Vercel isn't make like spending any resources to ensure. Well, obviously, why would they?
Yeah.
Spend like resources to make sure that Next is fully compatible on their competitors, but
No.
and that makes sense in the context of Next. But like now, when you start bringing in, I don't even know where that is now
Next
anymore.
and
But
Nitro.
yeah, and Nitro and whatever. Like this is a bit at odds with how they've been stewarding Next thus far. But like also, like I'm also pretty aware that it might be as simple as like they just not gonna try and steer any direction in the same way that people, when Microsoft took over GitHub, people were like, now you're gonna have to sign in with your Office account into GitHub, and integration with Microsoft Office, and you can only use GitHub client on Windows and whatever. And none of that really turned out to be the case. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, but it is a bit concerning, just like at the face of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, then like also something that's been doing a lot of rounds recently is the CSS if function.
Yes.
But I think like also that requires a dedicated session to just get into.
Yeah.
I
I
haven't
think we
looked
should
at it at all. I don't know. Maybe you have.
very superficially.
Is it? I don't think I can give a concise overview of it. Um, yeah. Then
No, me
there's
neither.
yes. Then there's also like this article by Chris Coyer, which granted I haven't read yet. I've been wanting to read, but basically, effectively, like it's his thoughts on the impact of AI on tech content creators.
Hmm.
Another person's thoughts I would love to get on this as well is Jeff, from who's like doing
For,
Smashing Magazine and who also used to
used to
kind
do
of be
CSS tricks.
yeah, used to be the lead editor there. Um, yeah, because it's interesting because I think he's actually quoting Wes Boss, yeah, from an episode of Syntax FM where Wes actually mentioned that he wonder whether something like CSS tricks would be able to exist today. Because obviously, and that's also maybe why DigitalOcean pulled the plug on it, is
Hmm.
because obviously um, obviously, like it could sustain itself. So, in other words, Chris Coyer could do it full time because he could, like sell ad revenue and so forth. But, now because of AI, like, would you even be able to kind of sell like technical, like, sell quote unquote by means of ads? Yeah, I don't know. Like, would
I highly doubt you
yeah,
could start something like that now. I
yeah,
mean, the way search engines are just stuffing AI returned data summaries and whatnot into
mm,
the
mm,
the first thing that you see on
mm,
anything. And I mean,
mm,
and all apps are doing it as well. They're just throwing AI everywhere.
mm,
Uh, whether that's sustainable or not is a whole other question because
mm,
the finances around that are very different. But
mm.
are people still going to Google, searching for a CSS problem,
Mm,
and CSS tricks will show up, and probably MDN and our
mm.
W3C or W whatever they're called, the dodgy one.
Oh, W3 schools.
Yeah, that one. Um,
Yes.
but there's going to be a whole chunk of AI generated content that's probably just regurgitating CSS tricks anyway. Are people
Mm.
going to be clicking through to read this long article?
Exactly.
Or are they going
Exactly.
to take that little summary that's probably coming from here anyway? So the
Yes.
chances of starting something like that, right now, I think is minimal. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the problem there is like, so all these AI tools are able to train themselves on all of this content that existed prior to like these incentives. But now going
Yes.
forward, like what is AI going to be trained on in the next 10 years if there's
Well,
no
that's the
incentive to
problem. Yeah.
actually, yeah,
Mm.
exactly. So um,
Mm.
you're gonna, if you ask anything, a question about anything pre what, let's say 2023 or whatever, you're gonna get really highly detailed, well thought out answers. But
Mm.
anything beyond that, like, yeah, I don't know. It's
Yes. If
yeah.
that if
Mm,
that content isn't maintained, it's just that, look, people are still going to try and do this, but it's going to
mm,
be AI generated content farms that are doing it.
mm, mm,
Um,
mm.
and you're gonna get it kind of eating its own tail, where
Yeah,
AI
exactly.
only
So
has AI
data is going to be
generated
trained
content to
on,
train
yeah,
itself on, and it
yeah,
just becomes even more slop than it might already be.
yeah. Like I know, like like I was so I'm creating some course content at the moment for a place, and so obviously I, looked for good articles on things like CSS variables or whatever, and like
Hmm.
it's all just like it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's basically, yeah, everything is just like AI generated stuff now. But anyway, so there's a couple of more ones on your side. So okay, Node.js. Oh, this is interesting. I didn't know this. I didn't know latest version of Node is actually doing type stripping by default now.
Yeah, it is.
That's really
But
cool. I like that.
with some disclaimers.
How so?
All right. Yeah. So it's still not quite
Type
foolproof.
scripting. S- okay, I just
And
saw
they've
the.
got,
Mm-hmm, by default.
jeez, yeah.
Ooh,
So you can turn it off, yeah, if you're having issues.
yes. But
So
at the
it's
moment,
not,
you do the experimental flag, right?
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now you turn it
So
off with that flag.
interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah.
Okay. Which raises the interesting question: is there a point to having a .ts like file extension anymore? But anyway,
Ah, that's an excellent point.
yeah. Um, because you're, yeah. I mean, like if
Yeah.
it's, because this is effectively what I'm doing. Like no sane person is actually running the TypeScript compiler because it's
Oh
just
no.
awful and slow. So everyone's
Yeah.
basically just doing type stripping. They're not actually building the
Yes.
AST and then compiling it or
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh no, no, no.
Um, so yeah, this is interesting. Yeah. So what's the point of having a TS file now at all? So
Good
maybe
points. There's
everything's
a
just going to be JS now, going back to
yeah.
JS.
We're going back
Uh,
to
yeah, to JS with types. Okay, cool.
yo.
Yeah.
What a time to be alive.
Yes, man. Like I still think um they wanted to actually make it .es for a very long time.
Yeah.
Around like ECMAScript and so forth. Yeah. Which also is another great, I didn't include it in the notes, but it's also worth noting that kind of like there's been some development with the Dino JavaScript trademark. So I don't know how much you know about this. So they're
No.
actually taking on,
Oracle.
yeah, um, in terms of, so I think it's, yeah, discovery begins on September 6th. So there's actually a site, JavaScript TM, which like you can actually, you know, if you want to support this, like I did, so it's worth it.
Okay.
So like they actually, effectively what it comes down to is that they, Oracle has copyright over the JavaScript trademark name,
Yes.
which is so stupid.
Fixed. They have nothing to do with it. Yeah.
Yes, and also like the argument is that JavaScript is no longer a product. It's not like you can't have trademark on it. In the same way you can't have trademark on the name English or Afrikaans
Yeah.
or whatever, like it's a language. It's like an ecosystem.
Mm.
Um and yeah, but effectively, so we'll see, we'll see how this pans out. But I think a lot of this was in reaction to, like, I mean, like even just Brendan Ike with all his shortcomings, like even supports this.
Ah. Mm.
But so um, with, like, I think a lot of this was in response to what happened with the WordPress thing, with kind of like the whole
Ah.
um,
Right.
yeah, Matt kind of meltdown, and then
Mm.
weaponizing the trademark against
Right.
competitors. So, like, yeah. Uh,
Figma has
so
been sending cease and desist to places using dev mode as a term.
what?
Yeah.
Really? That's wild.
Mm.
Dev mode, cease, and oh no. Oh my word. Yeah, yeah. What a
Yeah.
time to be alive. I want to switch to Penpot so bad, but like the only thing that's stopping me from using Penpot is, get this, they don't have borders.
What?
Yeah, but like single direction borders. So they don't have like, if you just want to border on the left or the right or whatever.
Oh God, you got to draw a line.
Yeah.
Figma
The
was like
reason,
that until quite recently, though. Here.
yes, their reason is because they're actually using SVGs under the hood.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so, and obviously SVGs don't support, I don't think in SVGs,
No,
I stand to be corrected, but I don't think you can do just a left border or a right border.
no.
Um, yeah, and it's such a stupid thing. I just wish they would fix it, because there's a lot of appeal to me in something like Penpot, because Penpot is actually, it's actually elements. So this is
Mm.
actual HTML elements and stuff
Yeah, it's not.
that
It's not Canvas. Yeah.
yes, it's not like some WASM thing. So
Yeah.
that's a pity. Like, okay, yeah, cool. Anything else to end off with? Oh, Shadsy and Figma kit. I see you mentioned. Like, like, is it
Yeah.
like an
No, I mean, it's
official one? Because I think there were
yeah,
two unofficial ones, weren't
it's
there?
an official one. It's I've been working on it since September last year, apparently.
Okay, interesting. Um, see, I think they still have the, yes, they still have the
Uh,
third party ones here
yeah, it's not those
listed.
ones. Yeah, I'm surprised they
So I
haven't
haven't,
updated this. It only came out like yesterday, I think. So anyway,
yeah,
I will put that in our link in the links. Yeah, it's not important.
yes,
Just if you use Shadzian,
yeah,
don't
no,
go and create your
100%.
own design system. Yeah.
Yes, it's interesting. I'm gonna take your word at this, but like I can't find anything. Everything online is just like third party stuff.
Your Google foo's failing you today, Scott.
It's, yeah, I shan't see in Figma kit. I don't know what else to search for.
I'll find the link. I'll find the
Yes,
link.
yeah, send it to me. I have to
Yeah.
see it to believe it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but yeah, I think like that about
Um,
covers it. Yeah.
we've actually got some people online, and we
Oh.
did have one question. Should we quickly?
Oh.
It's
Phew. Luca, yes,
This,
but oh, what a question. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Um, okay. Look, we've only got about 5 minutes, but this is a
Let's
whole
make it
panel
work.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
this is a whole panel discussion.
mm,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm,
So, but I think let's see what we can do with it. So I'm curious what your thoughts would be on
yeah.
front end roles going forward.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's kind of two convergences that have been that are happening for quite a while now in tech in general. Yeah, and
Mm,
that's layoffs because there's no free money.
mm,
That started what, like 18 months ago. It's been a long
mm,
it's been a long time that we've
mm,
been dealing with that. And then obviously this whole rise of AI and a perception amongst people who aren't doing the work that
mm.
it's some kind of shortcut, and we can
Yes.
produce much more and blah 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 blah. And I mean, there are some points to argue there. You can say
Yeah.
that AI tools are good for certain things, and they can speed certain things up, but in other places they're just actually a hindrance. Um, Unfortunately, front end roles I see, and this is absolutely against everything I think we should be doing, is that the
Mm,
junior front end developer for the foreseeable future is dead. Yeah,
mm,
in terms of
mm.
industry positioning. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would
Um,
say that of most dev roles, not
yeah.
specifically front
Not
end.
necessarily. No. Yeah. Not just front
Yeah, there's
end.
nothing
Yeah.
unique about front end.
Across the
Yeah.
board. Yeah.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
I think
mm,
it's especially short sighted to me.
mm.
But I don't run the
Yeah.
purse strings or anything like
I
that.
would I would caution anyone trying to get into tech now that you
Yeah.
should do it because you love tech and you love coding and programming.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you shouldn't
As
do it because you're dissatisfied with your current job or
mm,
whatever, or you
yeah.
don't know what else to do. So tech seems like a good direction. I think things
Yeah.
are very tough in the tech market at this point.
Extremely
Um,
tough. Yeah.
yeah, but like I mean, like I do it because I really enjoy it, so I get a lot of satisfaction out of it.
Me too.
Um,
Yeah.
if I didn't, I don't know whether I would still stick it out and take.
Mm,
I'd probably start
yeah.
moving into managerial positions or more like broader product kind of positions, strategic
Mm,
positions. But
yeah.
I like getting my hands dirty in the technical aspects. But that's
Mm,
because I enjoy it, not because I'm incentivized in terms of salary or
yeah.
benefits
Yeah.
or
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Mm,
so, but then, okay, so there's a conversation here about development in general, but I think then there's also a conversation here about front end. And
mm,
one thing that's interesting that I'm starting to see a bit is that um, I think a lot of front end roles are becoming more design focused, interestingly
yes.
enough.
I
And
agree.
I think what's happening is that because like most teams can't justify having a designer and a front end developer like on staff because of we just mentioned money. um, it's much easier to, and I kind of hate saying this because my formal background is in design, but
Mm,
it is much easier. It is much easier like having a front end developer learn some design sensibilities and get an eye for design than it is for a designer to pick up front end development. And I think also in terms of willingness, I generally find front end developers are more willing to get better at design than designers are willing to start coding.
yeah.
And So interestingly enough, a lot of design roles that I'm seeing now like have a very strong design
Mhm.
like expectation to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In-
So yeah.
I'm seeing more and more that term and in job posts and all over the place, which we heard a few years back already, but was
Mm,
seen as like a very niche, unusual thing. Is the UI engineer? You know, it's a
mm.
terrible name, but
Yes, it is.
uh,
It is.
it's an
Yeah.
awful name. But I'm seeing that more and more and more, and that
Mm.
definitely points towards the focus on someone who codes but can also do
And I think
design.
another thing is, yeah, I think another thing as well that's also worth like considering is that I think a lot of teams we're not shipping as much new stuff.
No,
Just
we're not.
because of interest rates and because,
Yeah,
as you mentioned, the CHIPS Act and the recession and whatever, there isn't really that many new startups. So
no.
most
Uh,
design work nowadays is maintenance work,
mm,
um, like kind of
yes.
incremental changes. So
Yeah.
the skill set is also different. Like you're
Yeah.
not looking for someone that can churn out wireframes. Um,
Mm-mm.
because you're not building new stuff. So
Yeah.
there's more of a now like, okay, cool. How do we? And I also like that's much more of a technical discussion now. Like you have this existing component, like how do you improve the user flow and so forth. And
Yes.
like that's more like you're going to be spending less time doing user research and business analysis and what, and more time actually just getting into the technical aspects, like
Mm.
how can
Mm.
we speed it up? How can we
Yeah.
make it load faster? How can
Mm.
we make it work on Firefox, and so forth? So that I'm seeing also more and more quote unquote UI decisions be technical and front end in nature.
Mm.
So I think like if I were to say like thoughts on front end roles going forward, um, I'd say that you probably, if you're a front end developer, you probably need to sharpen up your design skills.
Yeah.
um
I
like this
completely agree with
like
that. Yeah.
yeah. So as much as it sucks to be a designer and to hear that um the UI, and granted, like we talk, design is a wide field. So I'm just talking about the UI. I'm talking about interaction design. I'm not talking about,
Yes.
like you still have all this kind of all service design, all this other stuff, and user research and all of that. I'm talking about just like I think the type of people who are doing things in Figma now compared to 5 years ago are people that actually write HTML and CSS, and not so much people that come from a purely visual background.
Yes.
Um,
I
and
definitely
you
agree.
actually
Yeah.
see that in how Figma has evolved as a tool as well.
Mm. Yes.
Um,
Figma. Yeah. I mean, Figma has put a huge amount of work into developer experience within
mm,
Figma. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
I
mm.
mean, now they've got, MCP servers to hook up to your IDE and
Yes.
all sorts of things going on there that would have been unheard of, 5 years ago. It's
Yeah.
like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
This is purely for designing a UI and exporting it as a
Yeah.
PDF and
Yeah.
sending it off for review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
like. Let me put it this way: like the two most recent design jobs that I got, like having a strong like front end background was a requirement. And
Mm.
I'm purely just working in Figma. I'm never touching code. But
Yeah.
like having a front end background was a requirement for both those jobs. And once again,
Yeah.
I think that we're less in the space of just churning stuff out and then having the developers figure out how to make this work. And companies are more now in a space where they're refining the existing stuff.
Yeah.
So there's less about like just making wireframes and fidelity mockups and stuff, and it's more like taking one component and really refining it, being like,
Yeah.
cool, what if this, what if that, okay, but what if they hover here and this happens? It's more about like
Yeah.
those
Mm.
those kind of interactions and designing those interactions, as opposed to like what is the information architecture or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think you get into a space as well where, as a as a UI designer on doing exactly this kind of work, where things like documentation, collaborative mode with developers, understanding like the APIs becomes a crucial part of the skills that you have to have.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I would love for Yuasha to do a talk on this. So I spoke to him the other day, and I asked and we spoke about kind of design, like studying design and UI and UX and interaction design and so forth. And he said and yeah, we can probably end off pretty soonish. Is like he said one of the things that he wish kind of he had exposure to is like understanding like relational databases and database structures and stuff.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, that's
wild to me.
fascinating. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, so
yeah,
like almost like SQL, which makes 100% sense to me because
yeah,
obviously, like, yeah, like I'm assuming at his job they get they he has to design according to foreign keys and whatever. You can't just pull random stuff.
yeah,
Queries.
yeah.
You can't have a query here that like goes over your entire database to just get a result. Yeah.
Yes,
Which is
yeah.
interesting, and that's way more important than what is what font size is the thing gonna be. Yeah.
Hey,
So
no, I disagree. No, I'm joking.
okay, not font size, not font size. Let's say color. What color the thing is gonna be? Yeah. Yeah. Cool. But yeah, let's end it there. I also just see there's a very quick just like hello, sorry we missed it. But cool. Yeah. Thanks for joining. And
Yeah, thanks
yes,
everyone. Yeah, maybe this is a bigger discussion we have sometime as a
yeah, we
meetup.
haven't done one of
Yeah,
these in a while, so we're very
yeah,
behind in terms of working through things. But we will, I think we'll do this again in 2 weeks, and I think then we can start working through the HTML, state of HTML and state of
great.
CSS. Hopefully, state of CSS results have come out by then, but we'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
All right. Okay.
Okay,
Cool.
thanks everyone who joined.
Cheers,
Bye.
guys. Bye.